We went up. Yeah. At the right down there, whole thing. Well, I sit there and talk to quite a few guys, and of course, here we are. I'm complaining. I talked to, I forget what her name is. They're right there, but she's got her flack on and all that. And I'm talking how hot it is, and miserable I am. Here she is, got double equipment on. Hey, keep it simple. So, but it's a pretty good event. I mean, y'all have any problems?
Because of this.
Well, yeah, that's
Because
me.
of this. I
Yeah,
mean,
this can be.
even if we go
Yeah.
up,
Where did it all go?
well, it went here. Because if we're doing that, then we're doing this. Then. But even if
That's what we was trying to do, get the shops and air conditioning.
It's still 400. Out of the fund balance.
so, why do this? I want Hi.
Still much. Get home and get a shower Saturday evening? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, great. Yeah. Didn't take long. Better than. Original program. Pull up. The board.
One time.
If I remember, I'll ask him to screw it back.
It is.
Put a screw or something right there. Screw fell out.
But then, literally.
There you go. That was a quick fix.
I would
But
pass on it.
I'll explain that a little bit more. On the 10th of June, last week, the governor's office, 10 days to find it not signed. But there was so much bipartisan support for it. Still gonna move forward with more.
Good point, but I think. No, I apologize, man. I didn't even think about. I didn't think it was anything serious like that. No, man.
compromise. We're gonna do this?
Yeah.
Already the goal. But to do both. This. As
Again, I would. That was pretty good.
yes.
I
Well,
never-
exactly.
I didn't.
Well, exactly. So.
I expected that number, this, theory.
Right.
It's so stuff. Right? I technically not 30,
Right, because,
with that.
because some of this,
Uh,
that.
Theirs are different.
Sure.
Sure.
Something like that, I think.
Okay. Y'all situated? You ready to go?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
We might as well.
Wait, are we waiting for the lawyer? Where's our parliamentarian?
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and call this special meeting to order. And the purpose of the meeting was just discussion and direction for our town staff on the fiscal year 26-27 budget. There was still a little bit of questions floating around, and so we would like to go ahead and have further clarification on it. So, John?
Thank you, Mayor and Board. It's my pleasure to once again be before you to continue our discussion on the fiscal year 26-27 budget. If you can't hear me, I'm going to try to speak really loud into this microphone. If you can't, just wave at me or something. Sometimes I step back, you can't hear me. A lot of work went into the development of what I thought was an excellent budget that I presented to you last week at the board meeting. It was a balanced budget. I think it accomplished all those goals that you had set out for us to incorporate into the budget. It was balanced, no fund balance appropriated, set aside for capital reserves, some capital equipment expenditures, some new employees, some police and fire. But I thought it set us in the right direction. It set us up for that because of the biggest factor in the development of the budget was also county having the revaluation. Every 4 years they do that, and the new ad valorem tax base, gets adjusted on values of property, and there was a significant increase in Onslow County. But that led to another situation at the state level that was beyond any of our control in Onslow County, was that the state has actually passed in the House and the Senate Bill 889, which is the moratorium on tax valuations in Onslow County. What that does, put a 1-year moratorium on our ability to use the new values, which requiring us to go back and use the 25 old values, basing our general fund tax revenues on. So we had presented you a budget, assuming the new values were going to be acceptable. And of course, I don't believe that is going to be the case. As of on the 9th, when we presented the budget, the House did pass 889. So on the 10th, it went to the governor's office. According to law, he has 10 days to act on a bill that is presented to him. After those, he can either sign it, not sign it, and let it become law by not signing it, or attempt a veto. My understanding that there's a lot of bipartisan support in both the Senate and the House for these bills, so the likelihood of a veto being accomplished is unlikely. So we are moving forward, assuming that we were going to need to use the old values. We've got, as we were, working through our budget process, we gave you many scenarios, and one of them was that we would use the tax rate at 35 cents per $100 based on the old assessed valuation. And that's kind of where we've come full circle. That's what we're going to talk about tonight is that scenario was always a possibility, and I definitely think it is a reality now. So we've prepared a brief slideshow to show you the effect of the big ticket items. What's going to happen if we have to go back to 35. I think we're all pretty aware of, once I go through it, I said, you've heard this before. It's nothing new. What it doesn't do at 35, and at least in my opinion, I want to give you some ideas that where I'm coming from that it might be plausible for us to do next year while we figure out whether the moratorium is lifted next year and we can move ahead with, a lot of those goals and objectives that we thought we were going to accomplish this year. I think looking ahead using the old values is pretty much going to be status quo. That, we know what the revenues are going to be. They're not going to be very strong, allow us to do a lot of things. But let me go ahead and show you what we're thinking. I'm going to show you at 35 and at 37. Hopefully, after that, if you have any questions for me and Sonia, we'll be glad to answer them. And that we leave here with some guidance that, what you're comfortable with. And our plan is next Tuesday night at our regular meetings to present you a revised ordinance, because the ordinance we presented last week was based on a whole set of numbers. Obviously, we can't use anymore, so we'll revise that ordinance based on what your desires are. All right, just for comparison purpose, the ad valorem tax rate comparison at 35 cents and 37 cents. You see the green column at 35 cents on assessed valuation of $734,795,000 at 35 cents will raise $2,535,006. At 37 cents, an additional $144,857 general fund revenue would be raised using the same valuation figures, but raising it 2 cents to 37. So just keep that in mind, that 144,000 figure. What would you do with that? All right. Again, just a little bit more detail on the assessed tax base at $734,795,000. At 35 cents, the general fund revenues would be $6,229,170. Expenditures $6,727,455. However, as I mentioned a minute ago, the budget we presented last week was balanced without any appropriation. At a minimum, to do what we think we need to do, accomplish next year, we're going to appropriate $498,285. At 37 cents, your revenues increased to $6,376,656, increase of $147,486. Just remember that $144,000 I just talked about a minute ago, there's about your 2 cents right there. Expenditures, $6,898,384. So your expenditures have increased by $170,929, and that's, I'll show you in just a moment the things that we had to back into your expenditures to increase it by $170,000, and your fund balance appropriated now goes up to $521,728. You've seen this slide a number of times. 1 penny on our tax rate at 98, our tax collection rate of 98.57%. 1 penny, it raises $72,429. Items funded per tax rate, looking at, again, 35 and 37. What are those things that we did, or we think we can do, or we can't do at 35 versus 37? Looking across the top line, 1 new police officer, we did fund at 37 cents at $74,151, but did not fund using the 35-cent tax rate. Some capital outlay, with debt financing and general fund funds. 2 police cars, again, that's in both 35 and 37. Public Services Director vehicle, again, at 35 and 37. The radio replacement for the police department. Fingerprinting, live scan, that too, both 35 and 37. And only funded the downtown facilities Christmas tree replacement in the 37 option. Now, don't be confused that, hey, if we cut out $234,800, we can reduce the fund balance appropriate. It's not a one-for-one effect. A lot of this is with debt financing. So if you remove the expenditure and remove the debt, you're also removing the revenue. So it's not going to be a wash. The only thing funded directly with fund balance would be the live scan for $8,800, and the Christmas tree was a $20,000. So that's the only real cash effect. The rest is just debt that you remove the debt service. CIP, you're set aside for future expenditures, $61,500, not funded at 35. And that was one of the things we discussed when we showed that scenario 7 months ago, that we would not fund any CIP, but we can fund it a little, $61,500 at the 35-cent option. And the tot lot at the park, $60,000. It's in both options. This is a grant. And again, if you take out the expenditure, you take out the revenue, so it's just going to be a wash. A little more detail on what's going on at 35 cents, just the big picture items. All capital outlay purchases financed 100% with debt financing. It's $226,000. Again, if you can remove the capital purchase, but you also can remove the revenue from the debt, the net financing. The only thing you remove is your debt service, so not much effect there. Capital outlay purchases funded with general fund balance at 35 cents, with just the $8,800 for the fingerprinting live scan. And again, the $60,000 for the tot lot is we're seeking a state Parks and Rec trust fund grant for that project. At 37 cents, we can add a few more things in that you see on this list that was not on the previous slide. The first one is the new personnel, the police officer, that wasn't on the 35% option, $74,151. Again, we left in all the capital purchases with debt financing at $226,000. All capital purchases funded with the general fund balance now goes to $28,800. We added back in the Christmas tree in addition to the live scan. The CIP is now funded in this scenario at 37 cents per $100 at $61,500. Again, the tot lot is theirs again. You have the fund balance analysis slide in your packet. It didn't get on this slideshow, but you have that page in your packet. Well, Sonia, you don't want to
Good evening. So the slide he's talking about is the projected fund balance if we do the 35 cent or the 37 cent. So if we go with the 35 cent, your fund balance percentage will be the 51.9% at 35%, or 35 cents, sorry. And then at 37 cent, it's going to be 51.6%. Remember, we have that fund balance policy of not going below 50%. So that's all that was. 35 cent was 51.9%. So we're still above the 50%. So
with 35 cents, we're at 51.9, which is higher than we would be at this 37.
yeah, because your
Because,
expenditures are more.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say, because we're bringing in a little bit more revenue, but we're spending more to
Right.
furnish what that revenue is going to buy.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, went through those fairly quickly. Is there any of those you'd like to go back and discuss, or you have any questions that either one of us could answer as you debate, which direction we want to go for next fiscal year? I didn't talk about stormwater or solid waste. Those were pretty self-explanatory. We are going up a little bit on the solid waste fund because basically GFL, we haven't had a rate increase since fiscal year 17, 18, solid waste. Oh, it's been a number of years. I've got in my notes, last time we had a solid waste fund rate increase. Stormwater staying the same at $60 per residential unit. Other than that, the biggest challenge we have now is to balance the budget in the general fund.
So I guess the reason I wanted to call a special meeting was there was some discussion about 37 versus 35, and that was kind of news to me, so I wanted to make sure where we were at with that. So if anybody has any comments they'd like to make in regards to that, that would be great, because I thought my understanding was we were leaving with 35 at the last meeting, and then I heard 37 was being thrown around pretty vigorously out there, so then I got a little confused, and I wanted some clarification on why we were discussing that.
And Bill, if I may, I mean, I'll comment. First, want to apologize formally to the staff for all the work that you're having to do this budget cycle. I think this is now our 9th, 10th budget draft because of the friction that the state has introduced this year. If this is their definition of helpful, I don't want to see what their definition of hurtful is, for lack of better words. Secondly, I mean, given the uncertainty that we don't know what this amendment may look like this fall, we don't know what state, national, FEMA support looks like and so forth, and what kind of reimbursement we would get. For the same reason that I know a couple of us recommended looking at a 33-cent tax rate under the reval is why a couple of us brought up, well, maybe we should look at and evaluate a 37-cent tax rate to see what would that give us. The way it's currently written, I have to say that I wouldn't be in support of the 37 cents the way it's written right now, with more fund balance coming out at 37 cents than 35 cents. I think we would need to take a hard look at that. I think when you do the math on a $300,000 home at the current tax rate with the current valuation, you're looking at $5 a month for the difference between 35 cents and 37 cents. And I think it's worth evaluating if that $5 a month is worth getting us a new policeman that we haven't hired and added since 2017. So that was really the big item that I wanted to see us look at and evaluate, all about hearing everyone's pros and cons and so forth. Not sold on it one way or the other, but I think it's worth discussing on behalf of the public, because I think we've all heard public safety is a big issue for the people of Swansboro, and obviously we want to support that. So again, I'm all about looking at the 37 cents proposal. I think that, and again, very open to hearing everybody else's ideas on what could potentially be reduced from that 37-cent budget to get that fund balance requirement down some, because what we've done the last couple of years obviously is just not sustainable, and we can't continue on that path. So that's my opening comments, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? And I agree with you. I'd like to ask a question, kind of put Dwayne on the spot a little bit. I know we've got fully staffed this past year with police officers at one point, but before that, how many positions, do you recall how many positions we had open? Say, like, for some reason, I remember we were like 3 short at one time on police officers. So that's another reason we probably didn't add an additional, because if you don't staff the 3 that you're short, what's the use of adding an additional to that, if that makes sense at all? That's just my
Yeah, we've been running about 2 short, but since we did the pay study assessment, the revaluation on the pay study, we've been having applicants that put in, and we've been hiring now. We just swore in another new officer this morning, so we'll get both of those before the board in July. And we already have one person in the process to fill one of the 2 empty spots that we do have. Now, we actually have 2 a second candidate that we're also looking at, but he's still in BLED. He won't be out until August. So the two spots that we have open are basically being filled right now, yeah.
And then that would be a
That would
fully
fill
staffed
us
at
up.
what, like 13 officers?
13 total, yeah.
So then we would have 14 if we add an additional, to your point.
Right.
How long, and I know we've asked this question before, and I think I've got a good grasp on it, but 6 months to a year before somebody's fully functional as a police officer?
In some places, yeah, but here, I mean, it all depends on the officer. Some of them, as soon as they come out of their at the field training, they're ready to go on the road by themselves. Some take a little bit longer, and you just guide them on.
That's all I just,
Okay.
yep. So again, I'm uncertain, we did the budget at 35, I guess, but then we went back and did one at 37. Is that, we did not?
The one that was presented last week was at 35.
Yeah, okay, that's.
And then we had one of those other scenarios, 7, I think it was scenario 7, was at 35 using the old valuations, which is basically what I've presented to you tonight, with an option at 37, a menu of things you could add if you were desired to do that.
So our capital outlay is only a $20,000 difference, though, between 37 and 35. I mean, I guess that's something that could be set aside, but at the same time, that's not a big difference.
Yes, all the capital outlay, majority, it's all debt financing, loans. So the only thing coming out of actually fund balance is the Christmas tree and the live scan, which is only less than $30,000 for both of them.
So is that price on the police officer, that including benefits, and everything, right? Anybody else have anything they'd like to?
Yeah. Basically, for any of my comments, if I'm off on something, stop me and correct me, okay? But, when all this started, we started off basically with what we'll call option 7, which was 35%, no new equipment, no new people, basically what it came down to. And that was because of the situation, this pause is definitely going to happen, let's do it. So that's what we did to be on the safe side. Then we got word that all the other municipalities and counties were using the higher evaluation for their numbers, that more likely it wasn't going to get passed in time. So we pivoted again, but still, it was still 35 cents. So now, the reality is, apparently we were right the very first time, because it got passed. Granted, it's not signed yet, but it's going to be it. And now we're possibly looking at another option to increase it by 2 cents. Now, with the 2 cents, basically, as you stated, it's an increase of about $144,837. And with that, the difference in the two basically is just how I look at it. That $144,000 is basically for 1 police officer, 2 capital improvements, and 1 Christmas tree. That's just short of it's like $120,000 or something like that.
And a little CIP, little capital reserve for police and fire, that $61,500 is part of that 144.
Right. Now, I could be wrong, because the way the state government runs, you never know what they're going to do. But, more than likely, next year, the values may not be that high. They cut it down a little bit. They may leave it the same. We don't know. So, for me personally, everything that was put down here, I love the comparison. It's great work. Everything's right there. Boom. But I hate to put it this way, and I'm not trying to be rude about it, but for the last 5 years, I've gone all over Swansboro saying I'll never raise taxes, I'll never raise taxes. And my word is worth more than 144,000. So for me, I think I like the 35-cent one that you have here instead of the 37%.
So I was one of the ones that proposed of taking a look at the 37%. My concern is safety. Just 6-8 months ago, we walked the streets, and that was everyone's priority, is having more police out on 24. Those type of things. Talking to the chief, he feels that he needs another person. So I think it's adamant, and we never know what's going to happen next year. But if we see that the 37 is too much, we can always adjust next year when it becomes its time. Whether how they do the reval or whatever, we can always adjust that. But we also got to keep in mind, we also have a fire truck that's coming here soon that we're also going to have to hire several firemen to operate this thing correctly. And I get it. I'm just pointing some things out. Let me finish. Is we just need to be, I'd hate to know that that fire truck shows up in 2 years. Now we're having to hire firemen and police officers. I think it's important, again, to the safety of our residents to have the correct patrolman, as well as the safety of the patrolman, that he knows that he's covered down when an issue happens at midnight and there's no sheriff that's in the area to assist him. We just recently had a police officer that got an award because of something that happened, and luckily somebody else was there to help him. I just think we need to look at the big picture instead of, concern. And I get it, the 37 cents and it hurting everybody's pockets. But again, let's look at the safety of our residents, and let's try that. And I get it. We've got to put them first and make sure that the chief has what it is that he needs in order to protect his guys. And at this point, I am for the 37 cents.
So Chief Randall, could you speak to the fact about how many people extra you'd have to have for the new ladder truck that would be coming in? My understanding is it wouldn't increase too awfully much, but maybe I misunderstood that.
What we currently have, it would be 3 additional people for that aerial.
For that truck?
2027.
Okay, because my understanding was that you could operate it with the personnel that we have now, that they were cross-trained and.
Well, they can drive. We were talking about 3 increase because we have 3 on shift with 3 shifts.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 per day. Part-timers that make that 4th person as they're available and volunteers. The request for the 3 firefighters every year for the past few years has been to increase us to the 4 per day to be more consistent and now prepare for that apparatus.
Okay. All right, do you have anything you want to say? Yes. Tamara, you have anything?
I also asked to review the 37 cents.
Microphone.
It's on.
Yeah, but you're not close enough.
Too short. I also wanted to see 37 cents to see if that, the goal is always to balance the budget without having to use the general fund. I don't think that the 37 gets us there. Neither one gets us there. John, is there a chance that after the 1-year moratorium that for any reason they could extend that and
Yes.
not give us the reevaluation next year?
In the back of my mind, that scenario, it does exist at the end of that 1-year moratorium. Do they extend it for another year? And you also got to be aware of, House Bill 1089, which is still out there, that caps the amount of property tax you can levy, not the valuation, but how much you can increase your levy. So if you're at, and I don't know what it could be. They didn't say what you might get capped at, but if you reduce it too far, you may not be able to raise it back. So just be aware of that.
Do they base that off individual municipalities?
There's very little detail to that House Bill 1089 that says how they're going to calculate that.
But
Because everyone's, valuations are different, everyone's tax rate is different, their needs are different. I have no idea how they would come up with some methodology to figure that out. Makes no sense.
So, Sonia, brace yourself. I propose we meet in the middle. I prefer to stay at 35 because 37 is not going to generate enough. And if we can't balance books one way or another, I say we stay at 35 and we add the policeman.
So, and my thoughts about the tax rate is if we raise our rate, we're kind of fighting against what the moratorium's trying to accomplish. So the moratorium's trying to hold the line steady for our citizens. And some cities have raised theirs quite a bit, I think. So 2 cents isn't a whole lot, but I think it's going against what the essence of the moratorium is, which is to hold the line steady until the revals come out next year. They may not come out as high, but then there might be a cap on how much you can raise it, which is what you were touching on just now. So I just think if you raise taxes, you're going against what the thought process of the moratorium was. Now, I'm all about giving anything we can give to our departments and our staff, but that's just my personal feeling on it.
If I may, just to share some like information, because I had Holly Ridge, one of the commissioners, call me today, and then the Richlands commissioner called me today, and they're doing the same thing we're doing, looking at different options. One of them's having a meeting tonight, one is having a meeting tomorrow night. Richlands is looking at a potential 5-cent increase from 38 cents, and Holly Ridge is looking at between 2 to 4 cents, and that's both without the reevaluation. And again, it's for many of the same reasons that have been discussed this evening. Why? I don't understand why the state got involved this year, because I think it's an egregious case of overreach, and I've had numerous people tell me the same thing, elected officials at municipalities and on the county level, and are disappointed in that. And I just think there's so much uncertainty out there. Well, what's going to happen next year, to your point, John, and what we're going to be allowed to do and not allowed to do. I just think, again, that the 37 cents is a potential option, but I would want to reduce what that fund balance difference is. Whether that's removed, I think we would remove the Christmas tree. I don't think we need a new Christmas tree this year. I think we could push that off, that $20,000, to help out what's taken from the fund balance. But I think it's important to show the people of Swansboro what they're getting for their 2 cents. And if that makes sense, if it makes sense to enough people, I'd love to hear from people in town about it. I think it's just, again, worthwhile really taking a hard look at it.
Yep, and that's what the process is all about, us discussing and trying to find out the best option based on the feedback we get from our citizens and actually other towns. So I don't know where that leaves us at this point. We don't have to make a motion or anything. We just need to give you direction as to which way we want to proceed. I'm assuming that's. You don't.
Took this job, I look at it from that point of view, and when I hear from that point of view, people that would be in here right now, and I'm not sure that everybody wants to come to a budget meeting, but the folks I talk to and stuff like that is, anytime you give a tax increase, it's forever and a day. It's never that you get it back. It's the same thing. When's the last time that we had a 30, what what was the highest rate ever, historically wise, in the past 30 years? What's our highest property tax rate in the past 30 years? You know, Sonia? What's that? 39 and a half. I'm not going back there. I'm not going to creep back up to it either. 35 cents is where I'm at on this one. I think there's a lot of logic that this is going to support that. I don't think property values are going down next year. I think they're going to continue to increase, at least based on the history. I also like the fact that we have a very talented budget finance office that seems to come out net gain every year. And I do thank you for the underestimates, the conservative estimates for that. So it's nice to hear these options, though, and I'm not against hearing everybody out and everybody's point of view, but I'm not for a tax raise.
Okay, so you'd like to see it increase? You don't want to increase? You don't want a tax increase, or you do want a tax increase? You want 35 or 37? 35?
I would strongly look at 37 if we can reduce that fund balance minus, have it trending in the right direction.
Pardon?
Absolutely.
Cameron?
I'm at 35 in the police officer.
So basically 35 is where we're heading like we were before, but I did want to explore the 37 and make sure, we give everybody a voice in what we're talking about. I'd like to see us fund everything they'd like to have over there, but unfortunately we can't do that. And I know it's tough and it's a touchy situation, but I think the values will definitely go up next year. I'd be surprised if they don't, and it wouldn't surprise me if they go up to what they said this year. But if they put a cap on it, there's no way the values would. No, the cap would be on what our rate would be, wouldn't it?
Cap would be on your rate,
Yep.
not the assessed valuation.
Okay. So we've had a little bit of discussion. It's a little tense, but so we're going with 35 then, I guess.
That's fine.
Did you, Sonia, did you have?
So 35 cent with an officer, try.
With an officer?
Well,
With an officer?
I was thinking without, but,
well,
Yes.
not if we do like.
Keep the rate at 35 and add an officer, which is an additional $74,000. Is that, consider that? Doug?
Yeah.
So basically, Sonia, that'd have to come out of fund balance, straight out of fund balance. right?
Yes, but I can try and go refigures.
So then that's going to put us under 50% probably, or close to it?
Should be close to it, but I'll go back and see what we
Yeah,
can do.
it's hard to say right off the top of your head.
Did apologize ahead of time, didn't I?
You did.
So 35 with a police officer then. We'd make, all right.
You can, Sonia, which you may not have heard her, but you can delay that hire until January, so that affects only half of that cost. That's an option.
All right, well, does anybody have any comments or anything they'd like to bring up? Well, about the budget? Only the budget.
Just the last comment, Bill. I appreciate everybody's honest, open, and frank discussions about it tonight. I don't think it was heated at all. I think I appreciate hearing the pros and cons from everybody. I think everybody's interested in making the best decision for the town, not only today, but in the next couple of years. I think our focus is on doing our jobs by keeping our jobs, because that's what's important at the end of the day. Doing our jobs for the people of Swansboro. Thanks.
Yeah, and, we're all looking for ways to improve the town. And so that's the whole basis of this process. So, anybody else? Okay, with that, then I'd like to get a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to adjourn?
Can I make one comment real quick?
Yeah.
This
go
is not related to the budget?
No, it's got to be on the budget.
If it has to be run the
Yeah.
budget, then it was,
Sorry, maybe after the meeting, but.
got it.
All right,
Make a motion to adjourn?
second?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed, so we're adjourned. And thank you all for redoing all that for us.